A boy's proposal video goes viral after his celebrity crush accepts his invitation.
In the opening scene,
we're taken to the premiere of Alex Allen's new movie. The interviewer asks America's sweetheart about the movie and she reveals that it's about romance. Going with the topic, the reporter asks where her boyfriend is, who is also her co-star in that same movie, but as she looks around she realizes that he's nowhere to be seen. Excusing herself, she goes through the crowd until she finally spots him with an actress she's not in good relations with. Her boyfriend, being completely oblivious to their relationship, informs her that Rebecca has asked him to be in one of her movies. Smiling devilishly, Rebecca comments on how her boyfriend should get into some serious acting rather than being in Alex's silly little movies. Having had enough, Alex grabs one of the cameraman's drinks and pours it all over Rebecca's head. The blue liquid runs over her glamorous dress as she's left in shock. Surprisingly, Alex's boyfriend stops mid-carpet to scold her about her behavior. Not only that, he ends up breaking up with her because she thinks she's above him. Before he leaves, Alex asks him whether he loves her and he admits that he only acted like he did. Heartbroken, Alex stands in the middle of the carpet, not knowing how to react as the paparazzi swarm her. On the other side of the country, we see David in Mr. Walsh's class. As the bell rings, David struggles to catch up to Paige, but once he does, he ends up embarrassing himself. He asks her to be his date for prom night very awkwardly, but she rejects him, claiming that she already has a date. The whole time, David's best friend Heidi watches and she can't help but cringe at the situation. Disappointed in himself, David claims that he'll never find a date because everyone has rejected him. Instead of encouraging him, Paige advises him not to go at all because he won't be having a good time with everyone. However, David thinks that it's his last chance to leave a mark in his school. He is tired of being a loser and wants to become one of the popular kids. Paige doubts that there's something he can do to change his status, even asking a star like Alex Allen wouldn't help him. Hearing her say that immediately gives him an idea. Rushing through the school halls, he finds a place to sit down and watch Alex's latest interview. Mr. Walsh walks down the stairs when he notices David sitting on the stairs. He asks him not to forget his homework next class as he walks past him, but David runs after him to ask for a favor. He explains the whole situation and Mr. Walsh decides to help him. Looking around, he checks the area before sharing his secret with David. Pulling out a book from his bag, he hands it to David with a smile on his face. It takes him a while to figure out that Mr. Welsh is the author of the book of poetry. But once he does, he gets excited and thanks him for the help. Things are not looking so great as we're taken to Hollywood. Alex sits in her bed, rewatching the incident from the red carpet. All of a sudden, her publicist comes in and tries to talk some positivity into her. As she's pulling up the blinds, Paige reminds her that there are a lot of people who care about her, therefore she should get up and start over. Laying hopelessly in bed, Alex claims that everyone's used her in some way and that she can't keep a relationship in real life. Paige tries to comfort her by telling her that the people on the internet love her, but Alex hands her the tablet where she goes through some nasty comments. Having a positive mindset, Paige claims that they only need good publicity to sort things out. As she's scrolling through the internet, she sees a video from a high school student that has gone viral. They play the video and watch David as he goes through a segment before serenading Alex with a romantic poem. At the end, he shows the bouquet to the camera as he invites her to be his prom date. Alex chuckles and comments on how cute the gesture is but claims that she won't attend. Just as she says that, she gets a call from her agent, and all hope rises again. However, as she hangs up, she reveals that he had offered her to shoot a commercial for dog food. In the end, she finally agrees to help David out. David wakes up disappointed in the morning as there's still no answer from Alex. His mother gives him a reality check, reminding him that Alex is a busy actress. His sister agrees as well, calling him a nobody compared to Alex. As she continues her talk about the whole thing being a waste of time, the doorbell rings and she goes to get it. Opening the door, she sees Alex and Paige standing in front of her. Shocked, she slams the door in their faces and runs back to the kitchen to inform David and their mother. Confused, Paige and Alex stand in front of the door, wondering whether they're at the wrong address. David opens the door shortly, dressed up in a tie. They get introduced and Alex lets him know that she accepts his invitation, as ambitious as she can, to make it look exciting to the camera. They get inside and David's mother starts showing her old pictures, but David doesn't think that it's a good idea. His little sister Devin chimes in, making fun of David for being unpopular. Ignoring her mean comment, Paige informs everyone that she'll be doing interviews with each member to make it an official story. Their father rushes down the stairs and exits quickly to get to work, but he is swarmed with paparazzi in front of their house. He returns back to ask what's going on, which is when Heidi walks in from the back door. Stopping in her tracks, she takes off her sunglasses, shocked as she realizes that Alex has said yes. They pace back and forth trying to figure out how to avoid the paparazzi when Paige asks how they even found out that they were there. Feeling guilty, Devin admits to tweeting about their visit online. Their problem is solved shortly after Paige comes up with a brilliant idea. They end up switching Alex's and Heidi's clothes and letting Alex leave from the back door. Before she leaves, David thanks her for coming and she assures him that it would be great. As she runs around trying to reach a signal on her phone, a car ends up hitting her. Mr. Welsh comes out of the car immediately with his student, apologizing profusely to Alex. Luckily, the only thing broken is her phone and she's fine. The student keeps apologizing while begging Mr. Welsh not to flunk her, because she would get in trouble at home, but he lets Alex decide. Before she says whether the student deserves some sort of punishment, Mr. Welsh asks for her name, which she lies about, claiming that she's Alexandra Malinsky. The student agrees to walk home, so Mr. Welsh offers her a ride. On their way to the hotel, he turns on the radio for some music, but once the host mentions the big star in town, she shuts it off, afraid of being exposed. Given the silence, he tries to make small talk, but she remains secretive. He continues looking at her and she assumes that he's trying to recognize her. However, he informs her that she has a leaf on her hair. As they arrive at the hotel, he stops her before leaving and asks whether she's down to grab a cup of coffee sometimes, given that they've gotten off on the wrong foot. Taking her sunglasses off, she asks him once again whether he's sure he doesn't know her, and he claims that they've never met. Convinced that the man doesn't know anything about her, she decides to give him a shot. They go to the cafe, and after getting coffee, he opens up about being in the army and then getting a job as a teacher. Right as he asks her to say something about herself, David comes on the TV, getting everyone's attention. Mr. Welsh is about to turn around to see what the fuss is about, when she grabs his head and kisses him. Shocked, he doesn't know what to say, so she apologizes before getting her stuff and leaving quickly. Getting into the apartment, she is greeted by Paige, bombarding her with questions as to where she's been. Alex shows her phone, letting her know that she has broken yet another one. Not listening to anything she's saying, Alex blurts out that she's kissed a random guy, and that guy is Mr. Walsh. Paige starts panicking as she scolds her for doing unspeakable things. Her biggest worry is him going to the press. However, Alex assures her that he won't because he doesn't even know her. Paige doesn't want to hear any of it. She asks her to stay away from the man, to which Alex agrees. The following morning, we see them at the principal's office, anxiously waiting for the principal to come. A rather mean-looking sharp man walks into the office and the air intensifies. Nevertheless, the sharp demeanor falls off as he sits down and excitedly announces that Alex is more than welcome to be a part of prom. Shortly after, Mrs. Hope walks in and reveals that she has to go through the logistics before they allow Alex to be a part of prom, but Paige assures her that she's got it. Alex asks them not to give her any special treatment but to treat her like every other student. Paige's eyes widen as she gets an idea that would change everything. She suggests Alex goes to classes the same as the other student, so she can be treated equally. The principal agrees, making her the honorary student for the week. Exiting the principal's office, Alex bickers with Paige about going to classes, but Paige claims that it would be an amazing public stunt. David takes her to his class and decides to introduce her to the teacher. As Mr. Welsh turns around, the speakers go off, announcing that a Hollywood actress will be the honorary student for the week. His eyebrows scrunch as he realizes that she lied to him, but he pretends not to know her and welcomes her to the class. As they settle down, Mr. Walsh asks about Romeo and Juliet in Act 2, Scene 2, but nobody seems to know the answer to it. He decides to ask the new student, but Alex feels like she's being put on the spot. He starts poking fun at her, so she gives him the answer he wanted. Moving on, he claims that Romeo and Juliet's relationship was kept away by lies. However, Alex raises her hand and disagrees with him, claiming that only a small misunderstanding has kept them apart. They start going back and forth, including their situation in the play. David interrupts them by raising his hand and saying that he doesn't remember any of what they're talking about in the play. Mr. Walsh makes a snarky comment about her not knowing the play, so Alex starts ciphering it word by word. She shuts him up, and as she finishes the play, the bell rings. Trying to exit the classroom, Alex gets surrounded by David's fellow students asking for a picture with her. Luckily, she manages to escape the crowd as she sees Heidi sitting alone. She assures her that her clothes will be returned to her, but Heidi doesn't really care about them because David doesn't think they're nice. Curious, Alex sits next to her and asks why they're not going to prom together. She quickly realizes that he simply didn't ask her out, but Heidi gets all defensive, threatening her that she will expose her on social media if she hurts David. As she walks off, Professor Vincent, or Mr. Walsh, walks by, and he stops to talk to Alex. She asks him to go somewhere private to talk, but that's when Mrs. Hope interrupts them, asking Vincent to come to the meeting. Not taking a no for an answer, Alex asks whether she can join them, and Mrs. Hope lets her. At the meeting, Mrs. Hope starts talking about the preparations for prom night. Once Alex hears that the theme will be the Wild West, she can't help but comment on how bad of an idea that is. She gets asked for suggestions, and given that she's going to be attending, she suggests they do a Hollywood theme. They go back and forth, trying to destroy her idea, but once Mrs. Hope asks for all in favor, all of the students raise their hands and the motion passes. Mr. Walsh is on his way out when Mrs. Hope asks him why he didn't disagree. He reminds her that it's the students' prom, and not his. She agrees, however, she promises not to let it become Alex's prom. After classes, Mr. Welsh gets into his practicing car, expecting to see Andrea, when he sees Alex in the passenger seat. She wants to talk to him, but he doesn't because she lied to him. Nevertheless, she claims that she didn't lie, but that she just didn't reveal who she is. He believes that it's the same thing, as he stares at her confused. She mentions the kiss, which is even more inappropriate, so he asks her to drive off as he doesn't feel comfortable sitting in the same car with his student's prom date. Looking at him weirdly, she informs him that she doesn't know how to drive, so he agrees to give her the first lesson. Asking her to release the emergency brake, he expects her to at least know that, but she struggles. She gets the gist of it as she explains her whole situation to him. He even asks her why she didn't tell him the truth in the first place, and she reveals that every guy she meets uses her for something, which is also why she's single. Vincent reveals that he's single as well, but only because he hasn't found something like what his parents have. Focused on what he's saying, she ends up missing the car in front of her, but luckily, Vincent sees it in time and she stops. Given that she almost lost her life, he suggests they take a break, so they go grab milkshakes. They sit in the car watching the sunset as Alex describes her way to the top. Starting from a commercial, she has climbed her way to making her own movies. Curious, he asks about her movies and she reveals that she's a superhero alien that comes to Earth to save people. Vincent assumes that it's a good job, but Alex claims that everything that comes with being an actress can be very confusing. You start losing yourself in the process and you forget who you were to begin with. Checking the time, she realizes that she's late to a date with David, so she asks him to get going. Everyone awaits Alex as she's casually late for being on a date with a different guy. Although she may be little, Devon scolds Paige about her client being late, before going out on the balcony. At the same time, Alex arrives, but before she gets out of the car, Vincent asks her what made her say yes to David. Being honest with him, she lets him know about the words David used to describe her, which he soon realizes are from his poems. Not saying anything about that, he wishes her a good night as she exits the vehicle. However, she forgets her report card, so he comes out to give it to her. Flirtatiously, he asks her whether she'll need more driving lessons, and she answers by giving him a kiss on the cheek. Unaware of their surroundings, they end up being taped by no other than the little diva Devon. Alex enters the apartment and they inform her that they'll be going to a burger place only popular kids can enter, but she assures David that he'll be fine as long as he sticks with her. Before they leave, Devon catches up with Paige only to show her the clip of Alex and Vincent, threatening her that it will be leaked if she stands up to her brother. As they walk into the restaurant, all eyes are glued to them. Paige asks for a table for Alex Allen and they get seated immediately. Heidi is their waitress and she doesn't seem to be happy to see them there. David checks up on her, asking whether everything is alright. Heidi can't hide the fact that she's jealous because she calls him an idiot. Instead of being rude back, he just wishes she would be happy for him before he walks back to the table. As he sits down, Courtney approaches their table acting as if she and David are really good friends. Foolishly, she compliments him on the video and even wishes that someone would do that for her, even though she got an invitation first. After an awkward conversation, Courtney asks Alex for a photo, to which she agrees. Right as Paige is about to take the photo, Alex pulls David in between them, and even though Courtney is disgusted, she smiles through the pain. As they get back to their seats, Devon reminds Alex that Courtney is just going to crop David out, but Alex claims that's why she put him in the middle. After dinner, David walks Alex to the hotel. Before her elevator arrives, he thanks her for making him feel like he belonged somewhere for once, and even asks whether he has a change a few years down the road. After reminding him that he's still 17 and that she'll forever be 29 in Hollywood, she kisses him on the cheek and gets in the elevator. Getting inside the hotel room, she pulls out a paper with the number written on it and decides to call it. Vincent sits at home, researching Alex and learning some new things about her. Among the information, David's video pops up, so he decides to play it. He becomes furious once he hears the words he dedicated to Alex, and as he opens his book he realizes that he had copied the whole stanza. All of a sudden, his phone starts ringing and it's a call from a hotel room. As he picks up, Alex hangs up the call because Paige walks in at the same time. The following morning, Mr. Welsh talks with David but decides not to give him any punishment, but rather, advice not to plagiarize other people's work. As David leaves, Paige walks in and asks Vincent to stay away from Alex. She doesn't want him using her, and that is the decision Paige has made for the both of them. Vincent argues back, claiming that he doesn't need anything from Alex and that he has nothing to hide. However, Paige doesn't believe that, which is why she calls one of her friends to do a background check on Mr. Welsh. With just a couple of days before prom, Alex with the organization group finally realized the grand idea. Pulling out the prom plan, she shows everyone what it's going to look like and how it would be functioning. Despite there being a lot of extravagant decorations in her plan, she seems to have changed the dress code to black and white. One of the students chimes in and informs her that some of the students have already purchased their outfits. They kind of brush through the issue before going on to the next one, which drives Mrs. Hope insane. Slowly exiting the room, she is met with Vincent, who's sorry that he's late. She lets him know that the prom is turning into a personal award show as Alex does everything she wants in her way. Vincent is sure that it's not true, but Mrs. Hope promises to make it stop. Lunch break comes, and as David's about to sit next to Courtney, she informs him that the seat is taken. Quietly, he goes to the other side of the table, but a guy beats him to it. Realizing what they're doing, he decides to go sit next to Heidi. Disappointed in himself, he admits to being too full of himself, but she assures him that he is one of the best people she's ever met. Continuing with the nice words, she expresses her pride in his words towards Alex. Given that she's his best friend, he decides to tell her the truth about the kind words. Shocked, she asks him to tell Vincent, otherwise it would be worse, and he promises to do so. Mr. Walsh walks down the stairs when he spots Alex, struggling with the decorations. He runs and rushes to help her. Her ambition might have been a bit too big as she complains of having a splinter in her finger. They sit down for him to take it out, and he assumes that she had an amazing prom with the way she's committing to it. However, Alex reveals that she didn't go because nobody invited her. Vincent finds it hard to believe that she wasn't popular, but she reveals that she was bullied a lot. However, that never stopped her from being herself. For prom, she reveals that she set up her room with colorful lights, did her hair and her makeup, and put on her best dress to dance along some great tunes. He removes the splinter, so she goes back to work. Mrs. Hope decides to play it dirty as we see her at the principal's office, convincing the principal that there's a problem with Alex. Returning home late, Alex wants nothing more but to have a glass of wine to relax. However, Paige shares some news with her. Showing her Vincent's book, she tells her that he did want something from her at the end. The following day, we can see her walking back and forth, helping the other students in finishing the prom hall. Mr. Welsh comes by, and naturally, he tries to talk to her but she gives him cold answers. He follows her to the room, which is where she reveals that she knows about his writing career. However, nothing phases him until she accuses him of wanting to use her. She even accuses him and David of being a part of a huge scheme to get something from her. Vincent is baffled that she would even think of such things, but she continues to rant about it, claiming that it's impossible not to recognize her because everyone knows who she is. Having had enough, he lets her know that no matter the interest in her, not everyone is interested in using and taking advantage of her. He storms out of the classroom, but she remembers something else she forgot to say, so she exits the cabinet as well. Vincent is nowhere to be seen, but the principal comes right to her. As if the situation with Vincent hadn't been enough, the principal informs her that due to some rules, she can't attend prom. Once the principal reveals that Mrs. Hope has complained, it all becomes clear to Alex. She decides to leave it all and go home, but before she does that, she goes to Mrs. Hope. Mrs. Hope acts oblivious, claiming that she needs to follow rules like all the other students, so Alex calls her a bully. Wiping her tears, Alex runs down the stairs when her bag falls, flying across the hall. Luckily for her, Heidi comes over and helps her with the stuff. She asks whether she's sure about the situation and Alex admits that there's nothing she can do. Heidi is concerned about David and how he'll react, but Alex comes up with a better idea. She suggests Heidi go as his date and admits to noticing the way they look at each other. Heidi doesn't want to go at first but agrees in the end. The girls aren't the only excited ones. We see David struggling to put the bow on, so his sister decides to help him. Devin walks in and makes it in a second. She informs him about his social media followers and how he's trending on Twitter. Paige stands in the middle of the room, screaming while trying to negotiate a role for Alex. At the same time, Alex and Heidi walk in with a couple of dresses in their hands. Heidi gives them a fashion show, until they get to the wonderful pinky dress that makes her look like a princess. The phone starts ringing and they assume that it's Vincent, so they don't answer. Feeling guilty, Heidi decides to tell her the truth about Vincent. She reveals that Vincent really didn't know who she was, and that the book was given to David just so he could find inspiration for his words. Realizing that she's made a mistake and falsely accused the man, she decides to make a promposal of her own. David arrives at the hotel in a limousine when he gets a call from Alex. She apologizes for the circumstances but promises him an even better date, which should have been his only option. As the call ends, Heidi comes out in a beautiful gown and he can't help but compliment her. The prom setup looks like an official awards carpet. It looks amazing and the students seem to be enjoying it in their glamorous outfits. As Heidi and David walk into the party, Vincent notices them and wonders where Alex is. David lets him know that she wasn't allowed to come because of her age. Confused, Vincent goes straight to the principal to ask. Luckily, the principal says that Mrs. Hope must have missed a couple of things and that Alex can attend. As Paige and Alex are getting their stuff out of the hotel, Alex sees Vincent there. Despite already booking a lot of movies to be a part of, Alex decides to stay a bit longer so she can talk to Vincent. She asks for his forgiveness and he tells her that the only way he would forgive her is for her to go to prom with him. Mrs. Hope waits anxiously for Mr. Welsh to appear, claiming that he owes her a dance, and he does appear, just with Alex around his arm. Stopping at the dance floor, they come closer to each other, following the beat of the melody. He asks her what's next and she tells him that she wants to pursue a career in the small town. Finally, they share a sweet kiss, starting something beautiful.